Hi, my name's Eric Bromberg.
And I'm Kate Donovan, and together we're Blackstone Valley Veggie Gardens. And we're here this evening to talk dirty to you, a little bit about composting. I hope you enjoy.
Thank you.
I'm Kate, this is Eric. We are Blackstone Valley Veggie Gardens, and we're here this evening to talk to you about composting. I absolutely love composting. I know it sounds strange, but it's making something out of nothing. It's giving your veggie scraps, your leaves from the all fall leaves, and your grass clippings, your leftover lettuce, and your old rotten tomatoes. It's giving everything a second life. It's like a closed loop system, if you will. You take the veggies, you grow the veggies, you take the veggies, take them from the tree, fruits from the tree leaves fall, you take the tree seeds and make new plants, take the leaves, put them in the compost, so it's all a nice closed loop system. It's really genius. Sometimes we get so busy thinking about scientific things and technology, and whether we work as attorneys or whether we work in high tech or wherever we work, and sometimes just to think about the miracle of Mother Nature is just, it's just phenomenal. So we're here to talk about composting, and I'm here to talk dirty this evening. So just bear with me. So composting. People think about composting and they think, do I need a bin to compost? Do I need worms to compost? How do you make a compost? Is it that easy? Does it smell bad? What exactly is compost? So we're going to answer those questions and more. So we're going to start off, and in the end, we're going to have a little quiz, kind of interactive. Your name is Amy, right? You'll get them all right. I'm sure you'll get them all right. So Amy's a big composter. So Lynn is as well. So we're going to start this off with a little film clip. So, and this lady makes it seem easy, and she was kind of entertaining. So let me just make sure I have the audio.
Today I want to share with you all the bare bones to starting a compost pile. We moved to our off-grid property a little over a year ago, and even though we weren't planning to have a really big garden our first year, we just had a lot of other things to take care of. We did want to start composting and amending our soil because when we're ready to garden, we want to be good to go. And building compost and soil is just something that takes time, so we thought, why not get started now instead of later? We did quite a bit of research online before getting started, and honestly, it's really easy to get overwhelmed. There is a scientific process behind composting, and it's really easy to get lost in the details and the intricacies. So I just wanted to create this video to show you just how easy it could be. Where to put your compost pile. We chose to find a happy medium and put our compost somewhere where it wasn't going to be in the way, so it isn't in our main living and walking area. But we also didn't want it too far from the house because we knew that if we're putting our kitchen scraps in the compost pile, the further away, the less likely it is we would compost. So we tried to find that happy medium. Having it too close to the house, you risk it smelling if it's getting out of balance, too wet, things like that. So that's why we chose to have it out of the way. And also, we didn't know how big we wanted to grow our pile, so we put it in a space that allowed it to grow. One tip of advice, if you have a bigger property and you have a little bit of flexibility on where to put it, you might want to put it a place where you can back a trailer up to the pile, because we frequently are out and about when we pick up things for the compost pile, and it works really well if we have a trailer of stuff to just dump it off right here like we did with this grass yesterday. What do you put your compost in? Well, Mother Nature doesn't use anything. Stuff just falls on the ground and it decomposes, and it's okay. So if all else fails, you don't need anything, just make a heap on the ground and call it a day. We chose to use pallets because we already had them. We feel that this does keep it a little bit more contained and gives you a compost area. And we also feel that it helped us build up rather than out. So we've liked them, they've worked really well for us. Another option is to buy a compost bin or tumbler. This might be a popular option for small scale composting, or maybe if you're in more of an urban environment and you don't want some pile like this sitting out in your backyard, or maybe you're afraid the neighbors are going to complain. Bins and tumblers can be a really good idea. I'll link to a few of them below this video. What do you put in the pile? Organic waste. Brown stuff and green stuff. carbon and nitrogen, however you want to word it. It's advised that you don't put in meat products, dairy, and that you don't use waste from animals that are meat eaters. And there's probably a few other things. I'll go ahead and link to some do's and don'ts below the video. Nitrogen, or green stuff, is things like lawn clippings. It's advised that you try to get this type of stuff pesticide and herbicide free if you can, because that's going to make its way into your compost and ultimately your garden. Also, things in this category are food waste, coffee grounds. Coffee is pretty much our main food group, so we have that one covered. Manure, that's a really great source of nitrogen. Again, for manure, you probably want to do a little bit of homework to see what that animal ate to make sure that's something that you don't want it to be in your garden. This type of stuff also tends to be wet and retain a lot of moisture. If you get too much nitrogen in your pile, there's a good chance that your pile will get kind of stinky or slimy, and that's a sign that you need more carbon. Carbon is a lot of that drier stuff. This stuff may be a little easier to get. It really depends on who you are and the season. An example of carbon are things like leaves. Those are pretty easy to come by in fall. Sawdust, that's really easy for us to come by on our property. Cardboard, paper, and even hay or straw. So how do you get all this stuff? In a perfect world, you would have all of this stuff on your property and plenty of it. We have a few of these things on our property, but in all honesty, it's not enough to amount to anything. So we started looking beyond our property for materials and resources. This morning I woke up and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna get some carbon today. So I went to our local park, and there's a lot of trees there. It's fall, all the leaves are on the ground. So I went with my rake and a few trash bags, and I came back with a trailer full of gold.
I think that's it for her. Okay, let me get out of here real quick. So we'll go over kind of the steps. She makes it seem easy, and it's very easy, extremely easy to compost. However, sometimes it doesn't work, and I'll explain that as well. Okay, get out of this mode. Okay, very good. So what is composting? Composting is a natural process, how organic material, leaves, veggie scraps, all that kind of stuff, how it breaks down and makes a very rich amendment called, we call it black gold. And I want to show you, really, I am such a fanatic. I went out there into my compost, it was pouring rain. I said, I couldn't find my sample. I said, I've got to go out there and show these people what some really decent compost looks like. So I went out in the rain and got this up. This is 90% done. You can still see some of the leaves on the top, but you can see it's turning into black gold. This is stuff that I picked up started my yard scrap in the spring, and this is what it looks like. But the thing is, this is old watermelon rind, old coffee grounds. But what I want you to do is make sure you smell it, because that's what I want to instill on you. Is it doesn't smell. It doesn't smell because my compost bin, like the lady that you saw, the first compost bin I have is chicken wire, and it's out in the open. It gets a lot of air, and believe me, it doesn't smell. I have 2 other bins as well that I do the mixing and make sure I have the appropriate quantities of each of the green and brown materials. But we'll go over that. We'll review that more. So the lady made it sound like it's really easy. You throw a bunch of stuff in, and it really is easy. Composting has to happen. If it didn't happen, we all live in this part of New England, and we all have those trees that are 80-foot oaks and big, huge black walnut trees, birch trees, and all that. And if the leaves didn't decompose, how long would it take before we were all up to here in leaves? Of course, it decomposes, and it does that naturally. So it has to happen. But you want it to happen within 6 months, and you want it to happen, in your own time. So this is how you do it. You take a 1 part green material to 2 parts brown material. And she was right on. I don't know, I think maybe she had an accent. Maybe this lady lives in Canada. But here we certainly have a lot of leaves, and they're starting to fall right now, so it's a really good time to do that. Did you have a lot of leaves in Seattle? Do they have a foliage time there when you lived there? Yeah. Okay. So the brown matter, the high in carbon. Basically, the vast majority of my brown matter is my fall leaves, because I live in Blackstone, which is way out in the middle of the woods. So also, if you're not so blessed and don't live in the boonies, you can use shredded cardboard, wood ash, sawdust, as she said. You can use newspaper. People are all paranoid about, use the newspaper, not the shiny one, but use the newspaper with the black and white ink. Basically, the inks that they use from the newspapers are made from a soy-based material, so they're really quite safe to use. Peanut shells, corn stalks, and straw. What is straw? The straw bales that you get are just hay that doesn't have any life left in it. You can also use, it's good to use it as a brown material because it works in with your compost and works that way. The other, on the green side, we would use two parts of the brown matter, one part of the green matter. These are nitrogen rich. So you have your manure, your horse, your cow, and your chicken manure. Most manures that you buy, now I think you probably have some farms around here. I use a lot of compost. I have several double long raised beds. So I use a whole ton. So every once in a while I run out of compost. So what I do is I order some at the farm. They come and drop off a cubic yard. I think last time it was, 3 cubic yards or something, a whole ton. It lasts me a couple of years. But I get it from the cow farm. And they call it Compost because it's already composted. They already put the leaves in and all that, so they already make the compost, and it doesn't smell either. So, but if you do have a cow, certainly a horse or a chicken, any kind of that manure can typically burn your plants if you use it straight. So it is good to put it in your compost bin and use it. Also, coffee grounds are a wonderful source of nitrogen. Some people use them in the compost. Some people use them as a soil amendment while they're planting around the plants. Grass clippings. My main source of green matter is grass clippings. Brown matter is shredded leaves. Grass clippings are my main form of green matter. Hay. Now, hay is the same as straw, only the hay's still alive. The only issue, you're best to use your hay in the compost, because if hay's still green, it still has some seed in there. So if you use it directly in your soil, you may get some grass, because that's what it is, it's grass. So you may get some grass growing. So it is a good idea to compost your hay. Straw, on the other hand, as I say, you can use it as brown matter, but a lot of people use it as mulch. I have some actually in my garden now that I'm mulching over my garlic that I just planted, so it keeps it nice and warm. That will come up in the spring. It's always planted in the fall. My veggie scraps, my old leftover salad, as I say, every once in a while I'll smell something really bad and I open the cupboard, it's a rotten potato. So my potatoes, all kinds of vegetable and fruit matter. We just bought some plums, and I tasted them and they're like really hard. They weren't ripe, and I know they're not going to ripen well. So all of that is going into my compost as green matter. So hedge clippings, you trim your hedges once or twice a year. Also eggshells as well, clean eggshells. Typically I grind them up and put them in. You can use your eggshells as a soil amendment, or you can compost them in. Yes?
Do you need to grind up the peanut shells for them? Because I find...
No, I don't think so.
It was still whole at the end.
And how long did they go in? So, and that's another interesting point. You can have your compost bin, and you can do all of that, but sometimes you don't mix it up enough. If you have the correct portions of green matter to brown matter, and you fork with a pitchfork or with a tumbler, spin it once in a while, and you put your hand over it, you can feel the heat. Because that heat gets up to 180 degrees, and you can see, you know how you look at the toaster or whatever and you see the heat coming up. You can actually see the heat coming up. So it will definitely destroy the peanut shell's all fiber anyway, so it will definitely destroy it. But the smaller you rip up your paper and cut up your veggie scraps, the sooner you'll have black gold. The other thing is when you use your fall leaves, typically what I do is I run them over with my Ridomore, and they're already mulched up, and I throw it in there. Because when you use leaves, a big leaf, you notice when a tree drops its leaves, they'll kind of plaster right around the tree. They'll lay flat. And that's the tree's survival mechanism so that no other trees grow and try to obscure the light. So the same thing will happen if you put a lot of big leaves in your compost and they get all wet. You do wet it once in a while. Sometimes it rains on it. You will get that matting effect and it will not compost quite as quickly. So the best way to make sure that your compost is usable is make sure you turn it and make sure everything's in the smallest piece that's available, that's feasible for you. So you don't want to run anything through a ricer. Yes?
Do the veggie scraps have to be raw or like?
No. You cook carrots or whatever it is, throw them in there. I find some things decompose faster. I think they call it watermelon for a reason because it's got a ton of water in it, and it'll go right down to nothing. Whereas something fibrous like a piece of celery or what's real fibrous? A carrot, a big old carrot from the garden. Sometimes they get really woody. That may take a while.
What about like if they have like this seasoning on them?
Seasoning is not a problem. Seasoning is not a problem. What you do, in the next slide I'll show you what to stay away from in your compost pile. One of them is if you put a lot of oils and salad dressing and butter. That little tiny bit that you put on it probably won't make much of a difference anyway. Yes?
So then the 1 part green, the 2 part brown,
Yeah.
is it by
Volume. Volume, yeah. So, and you know what? So when you get to doing it for a while, and then you see that the compost is mushy and it's kind of yucky, and you get a few little bugs in there, and you know that you have to add some dry material to kind of sop it up, and you get the feel for it after a while. Yes?
When you said to clean the eggshells, what if they dry out on the
I think
inside?
they'll be fine. They'll be fine in the compost. The thing is that if you use it, I use mine a lot of times as a soil amendment. It's a good form of calcium, and sometimes your tomatoes and other plants can use it. So when I do that, I like to make sure there's no bacteria on them.
This time of year, we can just chuck them.
Through a real good composting, like I say, the heat, if you do it correctly, you'll put your hand not on it, above it, and you'll feel that heat, and you're doing it has to work. It's nature. It's a chemical, biological effect, so it will definitely work. Any other questions, or should I move on? Okay. All right, so there's a few things I want you to know that, well, first of all, everything composts over time, ashes to ashes. Everything will compost over time, but we don't have an infinite time. We really want the stuff we put in the fall, from all the leaves, we want to be able to use that in the spring to plant our crops, to plant our flowers, or what have you. So what you shouldn't compost, number one, you shouldn't compost your pet poop, unless of course you have bunnies. I'm talking about a carnivore. You shouldn't compost dog poop, and you shouldn't compost cat poop. The reason is that there's a bacteria in there that can make you very ill. So you wouldn't think of probably doing it anyway, but you don't want to compost your pet poop. You don't want to compost meat. You can compost meat, but I'm not sure it will do it in the 6 months, like I say. And the meat will bring a lot of those vermin, the fox and the coyotes, and maybe even a bear. I know we have bears around here. Believe me, we had one in down the street from me a couple of years ago. So you don't want to use any meat in there. It takes too long to compost. The same thing with bones. A lot of times, the old Native Americans used to actually bury some fish in there, and I guess some of it used to decompose over time, but there is, in a lot of the, sometimes one of the mild organic fertilizers we use is actually fish emulsion that's already been composted. So, but in any case, we don't typically use bones in there. You put a good-sized bone in there, everything's going to be composted nice black, and you'll still see bones in there. It just takes too long. Anything with fat, it will turn your compost pile rancid. It won't be the appropriate consistency. And you don't want to use anything with chemicals in it. You really don't. I mean, you know, the whole thing is, if you want things with chemicals in it, you'll go buy, you know, you'll buy your food at processed food. You know, we grow food because we want to be healthy. We want to be pesticide free. A lot of the stuff that it's the same thing with your grass. You don't want any grass that's been treated with a chemical fertilizer. You don't want to use that either, unless, of course, you ask if it's a lawn service, you can ask the person, you know, that's running the lawn service, is this okay to use in compost? They'll tell you. They don't want to get sued, you know, if anything's wrong. But the thing is, the compost pile will work anyway, but you may get sick long term. So another thing you don't want to add is wet grass, because it will have that matting effect. So you add it dry, stir it all up. You do put water on it every once in a while. Any dairy products, they will go rancid as well. They'll stink. They'll bring in the pests. Anything with plastic, because we know plastic is a manufactured product. It's not a product of nature, so it will not decompose. Anything, as I say, plants treated with pesticides. I'm not trying to scare anyone. If you buy your stuff non-organic from the store, you're eating enough stuff that's laden with pesticides. You want to grow your own. You want to grow a better, purer product. And colored paper, they say there's some stuff in the colored paper. What I mean colored paper is that construction paper your kids use to cut stuff out with. Yes?
What about lemons and limes? I thought these weren't supposed to put. What about citrus fruit?
They say that citrus fruit is high acidic. And the way you want your garden is so that it's mildly acidic. Adding citrus fruit is not going to hurt your compost. It takes a while to decompose, that's the thing. So if you want it all ready and you want to use your citrus, your lemons from your tea or what have you, make sure they're fairly small. Throw them in there. I don't think there's any problems with those at all. So, any other questions? Comments? Okay. Okay, so I want to show you some compost bins that you can perhaps buy. And I want to show you something about them that's, oh, I don't have my little laser thing on. So with these tumblers, you'll see that right here, around that the black rim on top of this one, and you see on the blue one, you see holes in them. If you look closely at any one of these tumblers, you'll see that there's always a way that the air will get in there. There has to be air in there for the decomposition process to take place. So you'll always see that the air gets in. So these tumblers were made, they're good to have. People use those because the bugs don't get in them. It's a little bit cleaner. But I could never only use that because I have massive quantities of leaves and compost bins. My situation is more like the woman in the film clips situations. We have to use massive amounts. So, but these compost tumblers, I think they cost anywhere from $69 to $200 or $300 if you want to get one, and they last a long time. They're very sturdy. Okay, so I have these as well. I have one that looks like this with just the chicken wire, just something to maintain it. And what I do is I have a whole bunch of banana peels or what have you, and a whole bunch of leaves or grass clippings or whatever. So I throw everything in that big pile, a big pile over here. And then I take the appropriate portions and I put them in my bin so that I have the the 2 parts of brown matter to the 1 part of green matter by volume so that it will compost more quickly. But most people usually have at least 1 mixing pile unless they have a very small amount of compost to use. Do you have a pile, or do you just have just the
Directly in the tumbler.
Yeah, and you'll see too that you start off the season with this many leaves and you say, oh, I am all set. I'll have enough compost for 3 years, right? But over time, of course, this is live material. So over time, the pile shrinks and shrinks and shrinks, and it'll probably go down 80%. So those are the cheap ones, and you do, when you're a gardener, part of being a gardener, I think, is being frugal, and these are some good stuff you can make for 0 cost. So I do want you to know also, and I'm going to, if you sign the sign-up sheet, I will definitely send you this resources. But at one point a few years back, there were some low-cost bins that were allocated to several of the towns in Massachusetts, and I think they're like $100 bins that you could get for $25. So here are the list of the towns. I don't know if you have any here. I don't see Southborough on there. Let's see what we have around here. Attleboro, Bellingham. Look at those. What's that? Sorry? Northborough, yeah. So see if they still have any. These are and maybe they've put another batch out. I'm not sure, but they were really nice compost bins. Let me see. Yeah, so there were some of them were given out. Were subsidizing the Earth Machine, and other ones the New Age composter, which is kind of a lower end version. You have to put it together. But the other thing about these, when you use a compost bin like this over a pile, is they're rodent free. So no matter, I'm telling you, your compost really doesn't smell. But still, if there's a warm place to kind of snuggle in and there's a mouse, they're probably going to get in there. So a lot of people use the bins. It's just a little bit neater. So another thing is you have to aerate your compost. Air is very important. So here are some tools. I have an old pitchfork that I use in mine. I use it in my pile, and I use it in my stationary compost bin. And when it comes to the rotary one, I just turn that, by hand. But it does have to be turned. I had this client one time from Attleboro, and I remember she said, we have been composting for years. We just leave it out there. And it's like yay big. It was a big, huge, it was probably like 10 by 10. And it was like this deep. She said, but look at it, it's all leaves on top, it's not composting. And I said, no, look at the bottom. You've got beautiful black soil on the bottom. You just didn't know it because you were just looking at the top and no one turned it. So just keep turning it and it'll all turn black. So how do you use your compost? I want to warn you about having a garden that's just compost, because I told you the compost starts off real big, and by the time it's all done, it shrinks because everything decomposes. And even compost after you put it in your garden, it still shrinks down. You still don't have the right amount. So you can fill it to 8 inches if you use straight compost. Within the next year, it'll be 6 inches and very compact. So you have to make sure you put some things into your soil added with the compost in order to aerate that so that your plants can breathe. A couple of things that you need for your plants, for your roots, is you need for the water to be able to get in the soil in order to give the plants a drink, and the roots also need air as well. So if you have an in-ground garden, I don't have any of those anymore. I'm all in raised beds now. But you till or you mix in a good 3 inches of compost. And I would do that every year. Because like everything else, the nutrition gets absorbed by the plants that you grow in there. So I would do that every year. In raised beds, setting up my raised beds, I would use 50% compost, about 20% of garden soil, and 30% peat moss. And let me tell you why. Everyone has a different mix to this. But compost is all organic material. As I say, it shrinks. Garden soil has some rock in there. It's got little tiny bits of quartz and all that kind of stuff, so it kind of withstands, you know, the years. And the peat moss is nice and airy, so that's something that'll help fluff your soil up. So that's basically what I use in my raised beds. It seems to work for me, regardless of what I'm planting. If I'm planting potatoes or if I'm planting peppers or what have you, basically I compost my beds with the same, you know, using the same mix. And another thing about it is when you do this, when you're growing plants, whether, you know, basically I grow mostly food plants. I'm sure it's the same with flowers or what have you. But the more organic material, the more compost you use, the less fertilizer you'll have to use. So either you feed the soil by creating good soil year after year, adding compost to it, or you use your spritz of Miracle Grow every couple of weeks or what have you. So I don't have to fertilize very often, and when I do, I use very mild organic fertilizers such as fish emulsion, because I've been working my soil for a good, I'd say, close to 10 years now. So pots. Of course, when you're planting in pots, your roots don't have everywhere to flow. They have a constrained area in which to grow in. So I would add 30% compost to 70% of your potting mix, whatever you use for a potting mix, commercially grown potting mix or what have you. If you don't have a lot of compost, and sometimes you run out, like I say, you can't. It's going to take you a while to get into composting to really understand how much you need. But if you don't have a lot of compost, what you can do is you can use it as a soil amendment when you're planting your plants. Put the soil right around there, or between the rows of your crops, you can put a few scoops of compost there, shovels full of compost there, and they'll get used. If you don't have a lot, like I say, use some. Only use the well-rotted manure in your compost, because the fresh compost can burn your plants. So
How much compost should you add to a raised bed after once it's established?
you'll see, because you'll see how much it goes down. It should probably go down anywhere 10-20%. But you'll feel it, Lynn, and everyone, and it'll get kind of compacted as well. And realizing that what you did is you just, I've seen your garden. I know you do a good job. It's sucking a lot of nutrients out of that soil, so you want to fill it right back up to the top. So.
Should you add some more peat moss at that time too, when you're adding more compost every year?
You know what? If it needs it, you'll get the feel for it. If it needs a little bit of peat moss, you throw it in there. Basically, what I typically amend it with after I fill my beds is a little bit of compost. But every once in a while, you'll see what it needs. If you see the soil's really compact, you'll throw a little bit of peat moss in it to make it more airy. So, and if you happen to have some garden soil around, from whatever, you throw that in there. Whatever you have, you just throw it in there. Yes?
So, what does it mean by burn your plants?
Oh, okay. So you want to explain that, Eric? To burn your plants with compost.
Oh, yeah. Anything that's too high in specifically nitrogen will send too much energy into the leaves, and you'll actually see little white spots all over the leaves and the stems. It actually literally does burn the plant from the inside out.
Yep. You can kill the plant. Okay, so just a few little fun facts. So just make sure we absorb this knowledge here. Okay, so although compost is decaying organic matter, it doesn't smell. This is because it's well aerated, and the brown matter absorbs any kind of, brown matter is already dead. A leaf a dead leaf or a piece of straw has no scent to it and absorbs any odor. That's why you have to use more brown matter. Also, as I had stated, a good steaming pile of compost can be up to 180 degrees. If you have a stagnant pile that's not going anywhere, look at it and, figure out, is it too dry or is it too wet? If it's too dry and crumbly, you want to add some green material, some wet stuff, some coffee grounds or some, leaf clippings. If it's too wet and sticky, you want to add some leaf material or some sawdust or something like that. So just be cognitive. Learn to think like a compost pile, I guess. So another thing is, I had said, most people with large gardens have 2 or 3 bins. Now, there's a reason for this. I say I have a mixing bin, and then I have two other bins. If I have and I'm constantly growing. I harvest food from May all the way to November, right? So I'm constantly harvesting. So wouldn't it be something if I had a compost bin, it was finally black gold, and then I had a banana peel? What are you supposed to do with it? Are you supposed to throw it back into the pile? It's obviously not going to compost in time. So typically you have more than one bin going to accommodate your needs. So at least 2 bins going in a pile. Yes?
But are your multiple bins, is there one green bin, one brown bin, and then one mixing bin? Or
No, well, I don't have it that way. I'm sure what I do is I throw everything into my pile, like that lady did. You see, and then did you notice she had 2 bins there? She had one that had a bunch of stuff, and the other one was nice and black. So that's what I think she probably did. She made it seem like it was like this, right? It's not quite that simple. So what she did was she took a bunch of leaves, and then she took the appropriate amount of grass clippings and, the right amount of coffee grounds, and she did it that way. But no, I put everything in a pile, and then from that pile, I fill up my bins according to the appropriate proportions of green matter and brown matter.
By eyeballing it then?
By volume,
Everything
yeah.
that you just
No, don't.
say.
Don't. I should. Maybe I shouldn't. I'm just trying to give you some guidelines, because after a while you get the feel for it, and you'll see the. So my sort. Let me see if I can do this. I'm not afraid of dirt. I'm a gardener. So anyway, this here. Can you see this? Oops. I'll clean that. I don't want Ryan to get mad at me. You see how it kind of clumps like that? Well, that's a nice consistency. It kind of holds together. So that's what you want out of your compost bin. You don't want anything too dry, or you don't want it, and if it starts to smell and you see a bunch of bugs in there or what have you, you know that you have to add more dry ingredients to absorb that stench and
Save it at that point. It's not like you've ruined the pile.
Oh, heck no. Oh, no, never. It's just garbage anyway, right? So, I mean, yeah, no, you never waste that stuff. It can always be repaired. So, okay. So I have a quiz now. Okay. All right. Everybody ready? You ready? Oh, go ahead, sir.
So where do we buy all this stuff, like Compost and compost bins? Like, is there a specific store?
Well, you can, first of all, you can buy them at Home Depot. You can buy them at Lowe's. Sometimes you can buy them at Walmart. And you can certainly buy them online at Amazon, because you can buy anything. So we gardeners, we have a few sites that we go to purchase our seeds, and sometimes small plants. I mostly grow everything from seed, but some people want to start onions from bulbs and all that kind of stuff. So they go to burpee.com, burpee.com, and that also has some gardening supplies there as well. But peat moss comes in a square, a cubic bale. It's kind of heavy, but you take it, it's about this big, like this, and you take it and you open it up, and then it's like flows. It just expands to like 2 times the size. So, but you do, some people don't like to use peat because they say that peat is not a renewable resource. They say it's depleting the environment to use peat. but we get our peat out of Canada, so I guess it's really not that bad. Some people use other stuff like cocoa coir and some other ingredients for that spongy stuff, but peat is fairly inexpensive, so that's what I get. And you can get that just about any place, garden supply place, and try not to get too fancy. Like I say, if I can get it at Walmart, I'll get it at Walmart. But that's a very good question. Okay. Yes or no? No? Nope. Animal bones are not an easily compostable material. They are compostable. Ashes to ashes, eventually, you know, it'll break down, but you certainly will take a lot longer for a bone to break down than it will a banana peel, right? So, okay. Well-composted bin is full of a black material known as black gold. Yes. Yes? Okay. Very good. Okay. A compost bin needs to be turned in order to mix ingredients. Let's see. Very good. Everybody got 100%. Okay, very good. Any burning questions we have?
So, I mean, I know that you kind of talked about it, but like attracting pests.
Mm-hmm.
So it's out in my backwoods, and when I go out there after dinner, am I going to be running into a bunch of critters?
Do you have it right in the woods?
I have some wooded area that's part of my backyard.
And do you have just a pile without anything around it?
Right now, I have nothing.
Oh, okay. Probably it may bring some pests, depending upon what kind of pests that you have in your area. That would depend upon the remedy you use for that. If you have things like voles and groundhogs,
We've got woodchucks.
woodchucks, yeah. Woodchucks are tough because they come up from the ground, so they do have a new remedy for that. They have these things that look like stakes that you stick in the ground that actually emit a vibration that the critters don't like. For other critters, you may have a motion-activated sprinkler, or you could have a scarecrow or a whirligig that scares them. Some people leave a radio on. Some people, on the cheap, because we like to reuse stuff, we're frugal, right? So what some people do is they go to the friendly neighborhood hairdresser and ask for the hair and sprinkle the hair around the perimeter, or your friendly neighborhood dog groomer, and they have the fur, and the critters don't like the smell of that, so you sprinkle it around the area. There's also I believe it's a non-organic product known as Animal Be Gone. You can use that. You can also sprinkle carnivore urine. They do have carnivore fox and coyote urine that you can sprinkle around. For the little critters like mice and squirrels, they're fearful of that. So, but yeah, you may have some critters if you have an fairly open pile way out there. So, unfortunately, they live here too. So, best to deter them. And the other thing is in Mass, I know you're. How long have you been here in Mass? A year. So in Mass, it is actually illegal to trap and rehome a critter. So you have to either kill it, which I don't particularly like to kill anything, or deter it from the area. So yeah. So yes. Any other questions? Yes. Yes. Yes, I do. Yeah, why not? Yeah, unless it's so snowy I can't get out there. But I put it in the big bin and leave it in there. Yeah, I do. And I turn it every once in a while. Yeah. Oh, that's because you don't have a big pile to mix. Yeah. And you don't want to do that. That's fine. I can understand that. You're probably afraid it smells. It doesn't smell. I guarantee it. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah. You can use them as a soil amendment, as I say. Yeah, those are really good. So, yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I hear you. So. Any other questions? Yes. I would think 6 months. Yeah. It'll be fine. No, it'll be fine. If you have a full compost bin and you have nowhere else to put it, that's a shame, because that's why I have 3, so that I can use it. And if it's something like eggshells or coffee grounds, as Lynn was saying, a soil amendment, you can actually add it directly to the, you don't want to add your banana peels or your your apple cores directly to your garden, because that's definitely going to bring some, some pests to the area. So
And then we can start the next batch.
it's really best to have more than one for that reason. But if you do have it, say your compost bin is full and it's February, you don't start planting till your early crops until March. It's fine to sit there. I mean, the compost will still be good and rich. You haven't planted anything in it that's going to draw the nutrients out of that compost, so it'll be fine. Do whatever you do, you do. Whatever you do is better than doing nothing. So, yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. It's just amazing to take all this stuff, and it's even there are some places now that cities, and I tend to think maybe, I forget which city in California, maybe San Francisco, big one or something. Maybe it's even Seattle, I'm not sure, but that actually made the shopping bags, the plastic shopping bags, illegal. They don't use them anymore. So people are either recycling or they're using the paper ones, which you can, once it gets crummy out, you can always rip it up and compost it. So Whole Foods has they have the paper ones as well there, but I don't like to shop at Whole Foods. I remember going in there at one time and seeing a quart of organic spaghetti sauce, $9.99. And this is why I do a class on how to freeze and dehydrate and can your garden goodies, because it's just outrageous to try to eat healthy at a place like that. But in any case, well, I want to tell you about that as well. It's very interesting. Good question. There's a type of composting called vermicomposting, and it uses little red wigglers, they call them, a special type of worm. And what you do is you have the worms, you feed the worms, you keep them in a bin, the worms poop, and so all the compost goes through the worm, and it makes beautiful compost. But you can't, they'll freeze to death. So that's something that you do in your garage, in these bins that open up, and you got to keep them away from the light. You got to feed them special food, and there's a whole discipline on vermicomposting. It's called VERMI. That must mean worm in German or something. Vermicomposting. What you do when you have, I tell you, I supplemented with the compost from the cow manure, the cow farm, organic cow farm. And I had a whole bunch of huge, long, what do they call the long worms? Night crawlers, right? Night crawlers. The things you used to put on the hook when the kids used to go fishing. So the big, huge ones. So whenever you see those worms in your soil, you thank God for them. It's like when I'm out in the garden, when I saw a bunch of worms in my potatoes, I said, I'm going to have the mother of all potato crops, and I did, because they do their work. They aerate the soil. They poop in there, their poop is great for the soil as well. So those are natural. I don't add the worms. The worms just come. The special worms that you talk about, that's a special deal, and you have to do that with a special process, and you have to do it indoors. People that live out in California, whatever, they do it outdoors. We can't do that here. So video, our YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff, because we have a lot of that stuff up there. That's pretty cool. I also want to tell you this coming year, we have 10 presentations that we do. We do have the freezing, canning, and dehydrating. We have the organic approach. We have companion planting. We have all about tomatoes. We have raised bed gardening. There's 10 of them. There were 10 of them. Now there's 3 more. One of them is on cucurbits. Cucurbits. Tell me, what is the cucurbits? Cucurbits. No, it's cucurbits. I know it is. It's the family of watermelon, squash, and cucumber. That's all in the same family. And they have similar characteristics, and some you can't grow with others because you'll have a cross-pollination effect. So there's a lot to grow in cucurbits. And 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 they're big, and you can really feed a family. So we're going to do a class specifically on cucurbits. Okay, so we have another one, and this is a very interesting one. And I've had to do some research because a lot of times around this time of the year, people just give up and say, "Oh, the heck with the garden." So they don't realize you have to close up a garden. You know, sometimes people, take the vegetables and harvest the seed for next year so that you won't have to pay $3.99 a pack, for 20 tomato seeds. And sometimes people plant green mulch, and then for tilling before the spring so that, you'll have some it turns into compost. If you do it 3 weeks before you use it. And, sometimes you want to plant fall crops. Like I said, I just planted 50 or so garlic, cloves of garlic. So there's something to do with that because it's going to freeze, so I had to get some straw and put it over. So anyway, closing up your garden. There's a lot to it, and because if you do it right, if we want to be sustainable and we want to grow our own food, you'll have something to do with your garden probably about 9 or 10 months out of the year, from starting your seeds in the late winter to still harvesting, come November, your kale, etc., Brussels sprouts maybe, or what have you. So anyway, closing up your garden. And the third one is something that I knew nothing about. To be honest with you, I have hit the books. I have found one of my resources on Facebook that is a professor who actually teaches biology at UMass, and she's into insects. I forget what they call her, an insectologist. What is it? Entomologist, that's right. So I am doing attracting your native pollinators. So we have 370 some odd varieties of bee species that live right here in New England. So how to attract the bees, how to attract the butterflies. It goes into a little bit of a story about the monarchs and the plight of the monarchs. And then also the last of the trio, it's not such an important pollinator, but I just thought it was a colorful addition. They are pollinators, and is the hummingbird. So it's attracting your native pollinators. So those are the two, the cucurbits, the native pollinators, in the closing your garden. Those are 3 new ones we're going to have this year. So what Ryan wants us to do is he wants us to do one in the spring, he wants us to do one in the fall, then the fall. So whatever you want to see, if you sign, give me your email, what I'll do is you'll see our website, and you can let Ryan know which classes you're interested in having us host, and we'll gladly do it. There's another one, there is one in the spring, starting your seeds up under lights and all that kind of stuff, and that's that's Eric's class. So he's a professional seed starter. And the reason I did the cucurbits class was Eric got so many melons this year. My melons come this big. That's it. Watermelons, whatever it is, this big, and then they tend to die on me. He had probably, 10 of them, watermelons like the A big. So he is the champion of cucurbits, and he's had extremely good luck with, and you've had really good luck with cucumbers as well, right? No cucumbers? Yeah, so it's all good. So any other questions or comments? All right, thank you very much for having us. That was great. I love to talk dirty to you.